Hi everyone, welcome to the Mathemagic channel. Today we're covering a plus b in brackets squared. This is the expansion of a plus b times a plus b. We're going to do some practice questions, see where that formula comes from, why we use it, how we use it. So if you're struggling with this expansion and it's something you see regularly at school, this is the right video for you. Let's jump right in. So the first thing to point out is that the expansion of a plus b in brackets squared is definitely not a squared plus b squared. And I see this mistake all the time. So please, when you see the expansion of a plus b squared, be a little bit careful. It is not what you see right here. These two things are completely different, and this is what we're going to cover today. So the correct way to think about a plus b in brackets squared is to think about using the FOIL technique. And the FOIL technique says that you need to multiply the first, the outers, the inners, and the last. So the first would be, in this example, a times c. The outers would be the a times the d. The inners would be the b times the c. And then the last would be the b times the d. So there are going to be 4 multiplications involved in expanding a plus b squared. And so if we do this together here, we're going to get a plus b multiplied by itself. So a plus b times a plus b, since it's squared. And the result of this is going to be, using the FOIL technique, a times a first. And then we'll have a times b. And then we'll have b times a, which if we write in alphabetical order is also a times b. And then we'll have b times b, which is the last term. Now a times a is going to give you a squared, a times b is going to give you a times b gives you another ab, and then b times b gives you b squared. Now you're allowed to mix the two numbers in the middle together because these are the same terms. So you can put 1ab with 1ab, and this leads you to 2ab's in the middle. So we can say it's a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And that is the expansion we need for a plus b in brackets squared. So this is going to give you a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. This is the actual formula here. And so it might help you to have a visual representation instead. And so if we draw here a square, which is a plus b multiplied by a plus b, so each length is of length a plus b, you'll notice that we get a first square here, which is a times a, and which we can write down as a squared, because a times a is going to give you a squared. And you'll notice we get another little square here, which is b times b, and this will be b squared. However, you should also see that we have 2 rectangles, and one rectangle here is AB, and the other rectangle to the side is also AB. And this is why you don't just have a squared plus b squared, but you also have 2 sections of AB here. So how do we use this formula? Well, I'll just write it on the right hand side for you. So this is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And we're going to go ahead and learn how we use it. So the expansion of a plus b in brackets squared is just going to be this, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. So in practice, how does that work? Well, let's imagine that we have 2x plus 5, and we need to expand that, and we need to stay away from the FOIL formula. Well, we're going to use the formula that we have now, and we're going to say that it's the first term squared plus 2 times the first term times the second term plus the second term squared. So let's go ahead and do that. The first term is 2x, so I'm just going to go ahead and write that out. So 2x, and don't forget the whole thing is squared, plus 2 times 2x times 5, and then plus the second thing squared, which is 5 squared. Now what is 2x in brackets squared? That is 4x squared, so don't forget to square the 2 as well. And then comes the tricky bit, the 2ab's in the middle. What is 2 times 2x times 5? Well, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 5 is 20, so this is 20x's in the middle. And then 5 squared at the end is going to be 25. So what if we look at something slightly more complicated, like 2x plus 3y in brackets squared? Okay, so it's going to be the same thing here. We're going to have 2x in brackets squared plus 2 times 2x times 3y, and then we're going to have 3y in brackets squared. Okay, so the first thing is going to give you 4x squared, and then 2 times 2x times 3y. Again, your mental process should be 2 times 2 times 3, and 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12, so you can say this is 12, and then you have an x hanging out and another y here, so 12xy. Remember to put your variables in alphabetical order. And then for your 3y squared, same as the 2x at the beginning, it'll be 9y squared. Now this is the correct expansion for 2x plus 3y in bracket squared. You could also have a question which might have like a square root in it. So I'll give you an example. What if you had 2x plus the square root of 3 squared? So this might look a little bit scary, but if you use the formula, you should be okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So 2x in bracket squared plus 2 times 2x times root 3, and then plus the square root of 3 in brackets squared. Okay, so 2x squared, just like before, that's going to be 4x squared. And then 2 times root 3. Well, what we can do is we can say 2 times 2 is 4, and then root 3 is a number, let's not forget. So we can say 4 root 3, and then we still have an x hanging out here. And then root 3 squared is going to be 3, because a square root squared cancels itself out. So that works out nicely for us. And that's the answer for this question. So at this stage, the best thing to do would be for you guys to practice. So let's go ahead and do some questions. I'll put some slightly easy questions and then some harder ones to follow. So let's try and do some questions together. So here are 4 questions which are relatively easy to do. And now the third one has a fraction in it, so that might be a little bit dicey. So go ahead and pause the video, try these 4 questions now, and then I'll write the solutions out for you. So your turn, go ahead and practice. So using the formula and without writing the middle step out, we can say the first one is going to be x squared plus 2 times 5 times x, so 2 times 5 is 10, so I can say plus 10x here, and then 5 squared is going to be 25. For the second question, 2x in bracket squared, just like we did before, is 4x squared. For the middle term, you'll have 2 times 2x times 1, 2 times 2x is 4x times 1, and then 1 squared, which is just 1 at the end. For the next question, which is probably the trickier one, 4x is going to give you 16x squared, so that's a good place to start. So for the middle term, we'll have to do 2 times 4x times a half. Now we're very lucky in the way that 2 times a half cancels nicely and is just a 1, so we're just left with 4x in the middle. And for the last term, a half times a half, and a half times a half is going to be a quarter here, so well done if you managed to do this question. And for your last question, 4 squared, which is 16, followed by 2 times 4 times 3x. So 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 3x is going to be 24x's. And for the last term here, 3x squared, which is going to be 9x squared. Excellent if you managed to do these 4 questions. Let me give you 4 more questions to try. These are going to be a little bit more challenging. Okay, so here are 4 more questions for you to try. Now these questions are pretty hard. If you can do them properly, that's absolutely incredible. So go ahead and pause the video, try these 4 questions, and then press play, and I'll do the solutions with you. And we're back. So here for the first one, 2x squared. So that'll give you again 4x squared. And for the middle term, 2 times 2x times 6y. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do 2 times 2 times 6, which is the numbers first. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 6 is 24, so I can say plus 24. And I'll think about the variables after this. I have an x and a y remaining, so I can say 24xy. Very good if you found that out. And 6y squared, so 6 squared is 36. And then we have a y squared here. Excellent if you manage the first question. Second question, tricky because there's a square root. So the square root of 3 squared is going to be 3 plus 2 times 5 times root 3. So 2 times 5 is 10. We're going to have 10 root 3 here in the middle, 10 root 3x. And for the last term, we'll have 5x in bracket squared, which is going to be 25x squared. Very good if you manage to do that one as well. Next one looks super tricky. It's got some fractions going on. How do we square a fraction? Well, 2/3 squared is the same as 2 over 3 times 2 over 3, which is actually 4 over 9. So I'm squaring a fraction. For the middle term, I need to do 2 times 2/3 times 2x. So So this might be a little bit difficult here. 2 times 2/3 times 2x. And what you can do is you could do this on rough paper if you need to, but 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, so the 8 is at the top and the 3 is at the bottom. So you have 8 over 3 and then an x to follow here. So remember that when you multiply whole numbers by fractions, the whole numbers are at the top. Fractions are multiplied by multiplying the tops and multiplying the bottoms. So it's just 2 times 2 times 2 at the top, and the 3 is hanging out at the bottom. The x is also at the top here. So plus 8x over 3, or plus 8/3 of x. Both answers are fine. And for the last term, we have 2x squared, which gives you 4x squared. Amazing if you managed that question. That was super tricky. For our last question here, x over 2 plus 3 over y. So the first term is going to be x squared over 4. And for the middle term, we'll have to do 2 times x over 2 times 3 over y. Perhaps when we do 2 and then x over 2, those cancel out. So the only number that we're left with is actually a 3 here. So notice how doing the numbers first is really, really useful. So again, 2 times a half times 3. This is what I'm doing. 2 times a half times 3. 2 times a half, because it's x over 2, times 3. And I'm left with just a 3 here. So in terms of the numbers, I've dealt with it and it's just a 3. For the x's, there's an x at the top, and for the y's, there's a y at the bottom. So it's going to be 3x over y. And for the last term, we're going to have 3 over y squared, which is 9 over y squared here. Incredible if you manage to do these 4 questions. This shows like a really strong level of understanding and mastery. So what's really important here is to not use FOIL anymore and to instead use this expansion, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. We'll do another video on a minus b squared and your third identity, which is the difference of 2 squares. Make sure you follow our channel, like and subscribe, and remember, math comes easy when you know what you're doing. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.